Thank you, guys.
There we go. And the idea is that we can post this up to YouTube later, right? So begin recording and posting our meetings. Okay. All right. Thanks, Heiko. All right. So if you jump over to the meeting minutes, what you'll see is an agenda. I'd like for each of the kind of microprofile feature participants to give just a really quick 1 or 2 minute status in terms of where the feature is. And then I'm going to go over kind of a microprofile 1.1 slide deck. On this call, I believe we have either press or analysts or both. Then we're going to go over the logo unveiling, and I try to put some time slots in there, and then any kind of Q&A that folks want to ask. And then Scott Stark asked for something to be added to the agenda, and if we have time, we'll get to it. All right, so let's see if we can go to actually, Scott, you mentioned that you have kind of a status update, and you've also pasted a slide. Can you do maybe 1 or 2 minute quick overview of the status?
Sure.
Of GWT?
Yeah. So I think at this point we're nearing API completeness. We've had quite a bit of discussion the past couple of weeks around what the JWT principle, which is an extension of the Java security principle interface, should look like. There was some concern about how we're defining the requirement for using that as an authentication mechanism in a microprofile deployment, specifically in the web application archives that we're using in the TCK. So we decided to create a login context annotation as opposed to having to require the web.xml being used for that vehicle right now. So those are the two elements of the API at this point. I do have an initial TCK harness running that plugs in, that a vendor or implementation would plug into to configure their container to run the tests. Again, that's another issue with how we're incorporating harnesses versus completely delegating the running of a TCK to a container under test is something we'll get to. But the mechanism I came up with, I think, is a good compromise for now. There's a handful of tests, maybe 10 tests in there right now, going over the features that we require, and we need to update the specification for the recent discussion, specifically including CDI injection of the JWT principle, the use of the login context, and we're also going to have an appendix that talks about behaviors with regard to interaction of other features not explicitly part of the MicroProfile API, servlets, EJBs, etc. So that's where we're at.
All right, appreciate it, Scott. And just to let you know, there's some new folks on the call. So the reason why we're kind of doing this very briefly, these status updates, is so that you can kind of see there's actually a good chunk of features being developed, right? And they're kind of in the roadmap, and they'll be coming out in future MicroProfile releases, right? So that's the reason why we're kind of doing these really quick status updates. Let's see. I think from a config status, we're probably set. So we'll cover that in the slide deck. The MicroProfile 1.1. Heiko, do you have anything?
Yes, for the metrics, we are looking at having some sort of a Java API that looks a little bit like what Drop Wizard Metrics does, but with the freedom of using an own implementation. We have, for the moment, identified 3 base contexts, or they call that registries. One for the base metrics, that is something that every MicroProfile server has to expose in the same way, so that the basic usage data like heap usage and thread count and so on are available in each implementation from each vendor. Then there is a vendor-specific part, and then an application-specific one where the application running on the MicroProfile container can expose their own metrics. And then on the access side for management agents, we're defining a JSON-based format, and also the Prometheus text format as a default. Prometheus because it's taking, especially in everything Kubernetes and microservice related, it turns into the de facto standard of metrics exposing format. Yeah.
Cool. Perfect. Feel free to extend any of the. I couldn't quite keep up, but feel free to extend the meeting minutes with anything else that you think is relevant. Does anyone else have a status update? Okay.
John,
Yep.
I know that
technical updates or overall updates? Sorry, Kevin.
Technical updates.
Good.
yes,
good.
we hit a few cornerstones with the release of the config stuff, and the point is we have to decide whether we release to the Eclipse repository or to Maven Central, because the integration between Maven Central and Eclipse is not as good as we would like it to have. The Eclipse repository is basically only available from the Jenkins instance, and the benefit is that it provides signing from the Eclipse, so you can have sealed jars with the Eclipse key. The downside is that staging and all this stuff doesn't work, so there is no way to do some proper staging. Or we go directly to Maven Central and skip the whole Eclipse repository. Then we could do staging and proper reviews before we release. But we have to decide one way or the other. Or we do snapshots to the Eclipse repository and the proper releases to Maven Central directly. Something like that. I'm not sure who is willing to work with this. Robert, you might be a candidate, but I guess it's more like we have to finally really get in touch with the infrastructure guys from Eclipse to sort this out with their repository.
Other projects
Okay,
like
let's cover that offline if we don't mind.
No,
Yeah,
the discussion part.
Sorry, what?
Well, I think it's going to say cover it offline, and that's fine. I would just quickly say other projects like Jetty publish out to Maven Central. There's a lot of Eclipse projects that are out in Maven Central. So there's no real issue. We just need to find a way, and the probably best ways to discuss on the list.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. Any other status updates?
I was just going to mention that Emily is out on vacation, so that would have, she could have provided some more on the fault tolerance stuff. I don't see Hiko Brown on today. I know I've been talking with other members of the team concerning the health check. They seem to be kind of finalizing their direction on health check to try to keep it as simple as possible. I'm trying to think. There was another guy from Red Hat that was also helping out. Jeff somebody.
Jeff Mesnil.
Yeah, that's it. And so I know that they're making some progress there. I don't know how close they are to defining a release, but at least they're working towards it.
Cool. All right. Thanks for the updates / review, Kevin. All right. I think at this point, what I'm going to try to do is kind of present some slides relatively quickly. And so I'm going to share my desktop. So if you don't have, if you're not logged into BlueJeans, but you're dialing in, then you won't be able to actually see the slides. I pasted the slide deck in the chat. It's the most recent link, and there's also a link in the meeting minutes to this slide deck. Right. So let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. Let me know if folks can actually see my screen.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We haven't really gone through introductions simply because there's just too many people on. So I thought I would at least introduce myself. John Klingen, I'm with Red Hat. I'm an Eclipse MicroProfile member like a lot of the folks on this call. right? Been involved pretty much from day one, along with a lot of folks on this call, right? So, next slide. Very briefly, what is Eclipse MicroProfile? It's an open source community that is collaborating around microservices for how we phrase it as enterprise Java. It is based on initially based on Java EE JSRs, just a few of them. I have some slides that show that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everything that we do will be Java EE centric. Some things may just stay in MicroProfile, depending on the community itself, right? In the spec leads for Java EE. And we're a community of individuals, organizations, vendors, and we're all kind of collaborating to work on microservices patterns for Java EE, as well as kind of integrating our applications with, in some way, with the infrastructure they run on. And that's, think about a cloud environment. So that's where things like health check and metrics and all that stuff kind of come into play, right? So this is just a very brief list of kind of a vendor and organization view with a couple of Java user groups here as well, with the LJC, London Java Community, and Sioux Java, right? And basically, you can kind of see here a lot of the vendors are collaborating on specifications, and also many of them in one way or another are creating actual implementations behind these specifications that we're working on, right? So it started out as a relatively small group, and this list has been growing over time. So we're seeing really good growth. One thing I wanted to specifically point out is, there seems sometimes questions about how does Eclipse MicroProfile compare to the Java community process, right? And many of the vendor founders of MicroProfile are also members of the Java community, of the JCP for short. And basically, the JCP is a standards organization, right? So it's intended to take mature ideas and potentially even mature implementations and try and kind of standardize them, right? And with Eclipse MicroProfile, what we're really doing is treating becoming kind of this innovation project that could potentially lead to JSRs in the future, right? So we're able to move much faster, have incremental releases at a much quicker pace. We could try things out. Some things may work out, some things may not work out, and that's just part of the innovation process, right? So we're definitely not trying to standardize per se within Eclipse MicroProfile. So I just thought I would bring that, make that comparison. But we are, if you look at this next slide here, we do want to accelerate the adoption of microservices within the Java EE community, right? So, if you look, Java EE has basically come to roughly a 3.5 to 4 year cadence in terms of releases. And again, it's because as a traditional platform, it's relatively mature, but it's also about standardizing mature technologies, right? And MicroProfile is all about innovating. So really what we want to do in MicroProfile is quickly iterate around a lot of these technologies and potentially submit JSRs as well once we think the technology is mature within MicroProfile, right? Or mature enough, right? Where we kind of all agree that we've gotten out of the API change, rapid API change mode to something relatively stable. And one thing I'll also bring up is if you look at many of the implementations of these MicroProfile specifications, they actually occur in the context of existing Java EE application servers, right, in one form or another, right? So in a lot of ways, they extend existing Java app servers. Although there are also standalone implementations of MicroProfile as well, right, that don't include the full suite of JSRs that are available in the Java EE platform. MicroProfile 1.0 we released in September of 2016 at basically JavaOne, and we basically limited it to some very specific Java EE technologies that we thought were relevant to microservices. And we didn't want to do too many because we really wanted community involvement and community feedback around, the direction of MicroProfile. So we started with a very simple set of features, and the vendors basically, implemented them using their runtimes. And we even have a kind of this conference demo application showing multiple microservices, each running on a different vendor implementation, all collaborating around a conference application using these technologies. Right. So I guess at this point, what we'd like to announce is 1.1. And with MicroProfile 1.1, what we're doing is we're adding in the configuration API. Right, and the configuration API is all about externalizing a configuration from an application, right? And if you think about traditional, application development, this has always been a kind of a pain point. Where do you put your configuration, right? You don't really want to bind it tightly to your application because as it moves through dev and test and production, the configuration options change, right? And also in a cloud environment where you have, rapid, a rapidly changing environment. If you think about DevOps and continuous delivery, continuous deployment, being able to change configurations rapidly is really important. So being able to externalize it is a key feature, right? And when we went about configuration, we didn't just try and go out there and just do our own thing because there are multiple existing projects that are out there, right? That do configuration, and you can see some of them listed on this slide. And what's important is that these implementations have different APIs. Right, and what we're trying to do with the config API, configuration API, is basically layer a common API where multiple implementations can implement this common API. So we expect some of these APIs that you see, potentially even this list, implement the config API, right? And then that lets developers pick and choose which implementation. And we already have a couple of implementations already, right? With Apache Geronimo config, WebSphere Liberty of the MicroProfile config 1.0 API, and others are coming, right? Swarm will have one, Pyara Atomic Tribe, right? We'll all implement the MicroProfile 1.0 config API, right? In terms of what MicroProfile 1.1 includes, in terms of actual content that developers can get their hands on, it's the existing Java EE JSRs that I mentioned earlier that we support, or that were in MicroProfile 1.0, and then we added config, right? And that includes a TCK, it's actually a technology compatibility kit that developers, if they want to go off and implement their own, they can actually, make a test. They can actually test against the common test kit, right, to prove that they comply with the specification. Java docs, there's a specification PDF document that's pretty thorough that developers can read, and this is kind of end user developers, right, those that want to use the actual config API. And then as mentioned earlier, pretty soon you're going to see actual a jar file available in Maven that basically lets developers kind of compile against the config API. And if they want to use it, the actual config API, they can use one of the implementations that were kind of mentioned in the prior slide. Right, so there's a lot around MicroProfile config that developers can kind of get started with. As we look forward, MicroProfile is going to extend beyond configuration, right? And you heard some of the status updates that we had with earlier in the call, right? So there's health check, metrics, fault tolerance, JWT propagation, basically how to services kind of agree on some security properties so that they can interoperate in a secure way. Right, and we even kind of have a roadmap that goes beyond 1.x. We're thinking about, well, with Java EE8 coming out relatively shortly, how can we, update some of these, existing specifications we support, like CDI, JSON-P, and JAX-RS. Maybe even include things like JSON binding, right, which is a new JSR in Java EE8. So we are kind of thinking out pretty far into the future. Well, it's not that far out, right? But thinking beyond just the 1.x and thinking about, hey, what might end up in a 2.0 specification. Just a note quickly, Eclipse MicroProfile is going to have a booth at the Eclipse Foundation. Well, it'll be hosted at the Eclipse Foundation booth. You'll be able to come talk to microprofilers, right, committers, community members at the booth, and talk to us about anything you'd like, right? The roadmap, what's in the release, how do I use APIs, see a demo. We'll have swag as well, and maybe one of the marketing folks can talk about the swag, but T-shirts and so on. So definitely take a look at, come visit us at JavaOne, and if you're interested in MicroProfile, definitely get involved. The most active place to get involved is the Google groups. So there's a MicroProfile Google group that you can get to from the microprofile.io. There's a link directly there, and that's where all the day-to-day conversations happen, right? We also have, on a project-by-project basis, each project tends to host its own video hangouts on roughly a bi-weekly basis, so every other week, right, where they kind of sync and do a face-to-face via hangout discussion of the specifications / technology they're working with. This meeting that we normally have, that's a broad community meeting, happens every other week, bi-weekly again, and we're even thinking about hosting a meeting like this where it's less technical detail oriented and more around the broader community. Looking at maybe hosting something like that, something like this quarterly, right? So that both the video hangout link and the meeting links will point you to the MicroProfile calendar that have information on how to actually join any one of these meetings. And last, take a look at the MicroProfile projects, right? This has links to the MicroProfile projects page has links to all the specs that we're working on and all the technical details and the current status and all of that, right? So definitely, if you're getting involved, take a look at any one of these, but I highly recommend getting started with the Google groups, right? All right, that's really all I have. So I am going to pause for breath. Do any other microprofilers have comments on anything I've discussed or perhaps left out?
I think we just should mention when people are getting together. So the security JWT meeting is every Friday, 7 a.m. Pacific. And so anybody who's interested in the JWT propagation aspect, now is a great time to get involved in that particular effort. It's kind of midway through and coming towards maybe the later stages of it. So the door's not completely closed on features. So this is pretty much, the best time to get in rather than say next month or the month after that, where things are going to be much more firm.
Right.
Also, if you Google MicroProfile calendar, you should be able to get to the calendar that has all these dates and when the subgroups meet. And that's
public. All right. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of halt the conversation on that kind of slide deck there, and I think Cesar, you wanted to cover the marketing aspects and what we're doing around the logo. that we've been working on for a couple months.
Thank you, John. Let me share my screen. And by the way, we're going to make these presentations available via the MicroProfile.io site, so that if people want to get a copy of or download them, they'll be able to do that. So can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Good. All right. So and
Except I see my presentation.
I just put up the wrong presentation. Hold on. Sorry.
Repetition helps remember. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's right here. There we go. There we go. Very good. So let's move on to the next slide. So let's talk about a new logo. So why did we need a new logo? So a few months ago, we started a marketing effort within the community to have a uniform look across all the material that was available for for download or viewing. And another reason that we wanted to do this for was to raise awareness of the Eclipse MicroProfile community and project. And one extra thing we wanted to do was if we were going to have a voting process to select a new logo, we wanted to include the entire community participate, as well as have it open to anyone interested in participating or getting involved in MicroProfile. So challenge.
You're breaking up a little bit, Cesar. If your video's on, yeah, you might want to turn it off.
He can't shut his video off because he's sharing his desktop.
No, you could shut the video off, but not the desktop. Yeah.
Still see the presentation?
We can still not hear you, Cesar.
Can you hear now? So if you cannot hear me, well, Teresa,
it's clearer now.
Okay, yeah, it's better.
All right. So I'll go quickly then. So there were a total of 4 proposals, and the reason there were 4 proposals was because one of them was the original logo that we had been using since the project was founded. So I just want to extend, before I move on to the next slide, a big thank you to all the design teams for all the effort and the work that you put into your proposals. So one of the first things we did was to come up with themes. If we're going to have a new logo, what should it encapsulate, or what should it communicate to someone looking at it or reading about it. So these were the themes that we decided on for the proposals: open collaboration, open technology, community, innovation, having the cool factor effect as well. Obviously, microservices architecture, agility, and also important was to be vendor neutral. The voting mechanics, the proposals were all blinded, so that if you were someone voting, you would not know who put that proposal together. And the voting ran from July the 10th through the 21st of this year. And it was advertised on the MicroProfile.io landing page, and it was amplified via LinkedIn, Facebook, G+, and Twitter. The accounts that belong to MicroProfile, as well as a lot of vendors that participate in MicroProfile, amplify the message through their social media channels, as well as a lot of us, we use our personal social media channels to amplify the message. The voting was open to everybody, but we requested actually, if you were going to vote, to make sure that if you were not part of the Google group, to go ahead and register before voting. We wanted to take this opportunity to also increase group membership. Some of the voting metrics at the end of the voting, there were a total of 181 votes, and the membership went up from 768 members to 784 members. So there was a plus 16 increase. And this includes, we took the count before the voting and the count after the voting. So we did not keep track of anybody that dropped out of the group during that time, but we ended up with plus 16 members. There's the vote count per day. The 10th was the first day of the voting, and it registered the highest number of votes, 63. And the last one was the 21st, and only 2 votes came in on that day. Also, we kept track of the clicks on the URLs. There was a voting form that got 488 clicks, and each of the option 1 through 4 are the links to the to view each proposal, and those are the clicks that each of them got. We took some measurements using Google Trends as well, and these are the term microprofile in the web. And during the July 10th, 15th, 17th, 19th, and 21st, and they were close to 100, which actually, if you go back all the way to the inception of the open source project, these counts are pretty much topping the highest number of clicks in the from the past. So it was very, very, very well, very good. Next thing is Twitter. This lists actually all of the tweets that went out. Well, actually, the ones related to the voting are the bottom 3. And the one at the very bottom is the first one that went out on July 10th that registered 6,661 impressions. This is the number of times users saw the tweet on Twitter, which is pretty high. I mean, in this list is the highest number. And engagements is when they actually people clicked on that tweet, and that was 308. The second highest was the second one from the bottom, and that was a reminder that was on Monday during the second week of voting. And then the last one was the third one from the bottom, was a reminder during the last day of voting for people to vote before the voting closed down. And obviously we had a winner, and the winner is, that's the winning logo. So that we do have a brand new logo, and I'm sure you're wondering what the counts of the votes were. So the votes are here. I'm sorry, no. That's actually, we haven't made this update yet, but this is actually the landing page of microprofile.io, just to give you an idea what it would look like. It will look like once that's updated.
It is partially updated already.
Oh, it is. Okay, sorry, David. So
lightning quick back there.
Good, awesome. Let's see. So the voting tallies. So this is a pie chart. You can see 69 votes went to proposal number 2, which is the winning proposal, and followed by logo proposal 1, which happened to be the original logo with 63 votes. So proposal 2 won by 6 votes. And at this point, I'm going to pass it to Teresa. If you're on the line, she's going to cover the next 2 slides.
Yes, I'm on the line. So as a result of this logo redesign, we're putting together a portfolio of images and style guide for the community to use. Within this portfolio, we'll have print-ready
I apologize, Teresa. You're really breaking up a lot. If you also have your video kind of turned on, which I don't think you do, yeah.
Okay.
Turn that off.
No, turn off the video better.
No, it's still kind of broken up.
Try it again, Teresa.
Okay, I turned it on and off. How is that?
It's not good.
Okay. Sir, do you want to continue this then? It's my recording or my video.
No, I think Cesar,
Okay.
is this a slide that you can cover?
Yeah, I'll do my best. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, so what's next? Now that we have a new logo, there are a bunch of assets that need to be generated using the new logo. Obviously, style guide is one of them. There's different kinds of, we're going to have a logo portfolio, a print and digital, as well as PowerPoint templates. These are all for folks that want to, obviously use the logo on, on different ways. There's also going to be for printing T-shirts and stickers and data sheets. There's going to be formats for those, or layouts for those as well. And the same thing with hoodie print file, and as well as all the the website related to the website. I'm sorry, I should say that David mentioned that the website is already being updated. That's listed here. What's next? As well as all the media channels. Every time we put out something on LinkedIn or on Twitter, there is a logo included in there, so all those need to be updated. Okay, so the last slide is here, how to contact the MicroProfile marketing team. We do have a dedicated email open to everybody. So that, there's a Google group also that you can go and see. Everything's open to the public. But if you want to reach us directly, you can use this email. Please, if you're interested in helping out with the marketing activities, you're welcome to join, tech or not tech. And we'll always need help, if you want to author a blog post, please reach out to us so that we can coordinate that and put it up on microprofile.io. Social media blasts, conference-related activities, design work, special announcements, and analyst and PR activities. Let's see what else. And just a reminder for everybody, if you want, again, as mentioned before, the MicroProfile Google group is open to everyone. If you want to start a new thread and post a question or participate in any of the sub teams. If you want your post if you want the marketing team to get also a copy of that post, or kind of like say, attention, marketing team, I want you to pay attention to this forum entry. Please make sure you CC that email into your post so that we will not miss it that way. Okay, and that's all I had. Yep. Thank you. So back to you, John, or whatever.
All right, awesome. Thanks for the update. Congratulations, MicroProfile community. Not only do we have a 1.1 release out the door, we now have a new logo. So wonderful. So I guess I'd like to open it up for any questions. I guess maybe I'll either try and handle some of them or spread the love around if there's anyone else that wants to answer questions. But for now, are there any questions?
We have 24 participants on this call. Guys, if we don't have a question, then you just wasted the last 40 minutes. Seriously, we can do better. What? Seriously.
I have a quick question regarding I have a question for everybody regarding the marketing efforts. Is this what the community envisioned?
Can you type it in the chat, Teresa?
Okay.
Yeah, you're still not coming through clearly.
Yeah, there's actually a question in the chat already. John, this says, do we know why only 23% of group members voted? That's a great question. Actually, Mycroft kind of answered that. We amplified the messages as best as we could through the social media channels, not just the MicroProfile, but I know a lot of the vendors that are part of this community also amplify the message through the specific vendors' social media channels. But let's see. Okay, so Mike's saying that a lot of members are active. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So the Google group, it says list everyone who has ever interacted with the group. Yeah, I mean, that's true. If you join a group because you were curious,
you're breaking up now, Cesar.
Yeah, Cesar, now you're breaking up.
I think it's ironic that the marketing team has the most audio trouble.
So, I think we're talking about the question is extremely great. Why didn't we have close to 800 people, at least 500 to vote, right? And we did PR as much as possible, and we believe that the number of, I call them microprofilers ourselves, voted is extremely good when compared to when we were thinking about having a code of conduct from MicroProfile, which was killed because it had pretty much 10, 15 people voting. And I remember one of those threads saying, if it doesn't have attraction, the vote for the new logo will be killed. That was in one of the threads. I believe that close to 200 is extremely good for how we started, because this is the second time we actually vote on two different topics. So we will do better. And there are many dormant contributors, microprofilers. We just need to do better at bringing information to them without having them to work so hard through the Google threads, which is too much data.
I think you need to look at this in a flip side. 23% were already active people. That means 77% were new people we reached. That's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really good. So this effort got 77% more people, who voted were people who had not been involved in the microprofile list already. So that's like a really good outreach that we did there. And so, that's very fantastic.
So Teresa just mentioned that the blog post is now up. So if you go to microprofile.io/blog, you'll see the MicroProfile 1.1 blog post. So thanks for that. A lot of that information is what we covered in this call. I don't know if there's a lot new there, but definitely go take a look. Tweet it and spread it around, right, is my recommendation, right? So definitely spread the love. Charlotte, can you please summarize the importance of today's 1.1 enhancement around health check, metrics, fault tolerance, JWT propagation? I'll take a shot at it, and then if anyone else wants to add to that, feel free. So 1.1 includes the adds, I should say, to the base APIs, the configuration API. The other ones that were mentioned that you mentioned in your question, Charlotte, are we probably shouldn't have said 1.x. We should have said 1.1.next, right? What comes after 1.1, right? And those are a list of features that multiple teams are working on, right? Some of those we want to appear in the next release, right? So what we're trying to do is time box our releases, right? So we're hoping to have our next release, in a couple of months, right? And whatever features are going to be available in that time slot is what will be in that next release, right? Again, we're not feature boxed, we're time boxed. Now, the importance of the enhancements that we're talking about is again, it's about providing a collection of functionality or specifications and multiple implementations over time around microservices, right? And enterprise Java applications. So there's lots of individual projects where people can go off and pull a bunch of open source projects, but there's no there's no consistency across them in terms of an API. So you have to choose one, and if for whatever reason it happens to be the wrong choice, then you have to rewrite code to go off and implement another one, right? The importance, I think, around these APIs and their respective functionalities is they're very relevant for for microservices. But now, if you write to the MicroProfile API, you can choose the implementation that you want. And anyone else want to make a comment on that?
I mean, the same applies also from the other side for, let's say, the health checks and the metrics that we're working on, where management agents, when you have to monitor your servers in your data center, where they can find always the same infrastructure and work the same way, no matter which vendor is or the server of which vendor you are running, because they all adhere to the same standard. And we are taking modern, also the today's pseudo standard or de facto standards into account, like the Prometheus format or the health checks, which is an integral part of Kubernetes deployments these days.
So
just
hopefully,
there's a second question. Yeah, there's a second question by Charlotte there, John.
What's the reasoning behind joining the Eclipse group for furthering speeding your agenda? You know what? I answered the last question. Does someone else want to take a shot at that on the MicroProfile team?
Sure.
Actually, Kevin.
Go ahead, Kevin.
David, go for
it. We had participated together just informally as a Google group and as a project in GitHub, and we did that for several months. We announced in June, and I believe we moved over in maybe the January timeframe. Is that right, Kevin?
December.
December.
Yeah, December. Yep.
I just recall when we kind of got out the other side. But what the Eclipse Foundation offers us is means to clear all the IP. When you're out there as a GitHub group, there is no clear way to clean the IP that goes through. There's also no formalization around voting. There are no processes in place, and there's no legal entity there that can kind of protect the project. And so the Eclipse Foundation gives us all those things, and as opposed to other foundations, is individual and business friendly. So that works out well for everybody who wants to contribute to MicroProfile. And so far, we've had a very large number of people join MicroProfile since we moved to the Eclipse Foundation. So we've just had SmartBear, we had Hammock, we had Hazelcast, and several people who have joined up after we moved to the Eclipse Foundation. So that clear structure with clear IP flows, clear CLAs, and clear legal structure has fueled the project, and we've pretty much doubled the number of people who are involved since moving to the Eclipse Foundation. So there have been some pretty clear and tangible benefits, and it's only been 8 months. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Okay. I believe that answers the question. There's another question, perhaps for Teresa or Cesar, assuming their audio works, is once we find a home. Oh, sorry, it just scrolled on me. Are the new marketing materials going to be linked off the IO website in the Eclipse project wiki?
Can you hear me? Yes or no?
Yes. Good.
Okay, good. So if I just put in the wiki link in the chat, if you click on there, it'll take you to the wiki under the links section. The last link is for marketing. So if you click on there, it'll take you to a Google Drive with all the marketing material, and it's open to everybody.
Okay, thanks, Cesar.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right. I guess from a formalized. We have another question from Cameron. Will you have a presence at JavaOne? So there is a slide on JavaOne. So feel free to go back and kind of review the deck. But a quick summary is that MicroProfile, it'll have actually multiple different presences. The primary presence is going to be at the Eclipse Foundation booth. We're going to have a whole Eclipse kind of MicroProfile coverage throughout the conference by multiple MicroProfile members. And then I think each of the vendors themselves, those that implement or projects that are going to be at JavaOne, will also have coverage at their booths around MicroProfile in some way.
We also had a couple of presentations accepted as part of the JavaOne sessions related to MicroProfile. I know Alistair and myself had one. I think David had one. So there's a few of them that they did accept with MicroProfile. And we do have the panel on how MicroProfile works with Java EE8.
Yeah.
So it actually, considering that the overall question mark between Java EE and MicroProfile, I thought we did pretty good with getting our presence accepted.
They've been very supportive.
Good point. Good question. Okay. Any other questions?
Feedback for the ones that have received the acceptance for JavaOne sessions. There is a thread in Google forum that says JavaOne. If everyone that got accepted goes in there and says this tag was accepted, because going to the catalog is just a lot of work. But there is that thread to say, hey, this is what is happening, because it's going to take a while for the marketing team to do the PR around all of this data. Everything is going to be covered. But until then, we should be sharing what is happening and bringing transparency to the community of what they can expect at JavaOne.
Yeah, and we do have a spreadsheet, so that will help with the marketing people as far as organizing what got accepted. And it's got a list of the sessions that were not accepted. So, we've got both sides there. And the other thing that Hiko just pointed out, we do have sessions at EclipseCon later in October that were also accepted related to MicroProfile. So we've got two major conferences where we're going to be making an impact.
Yeah, and there are the threads too. So please, let's just update. Don't throw work to someone else. Just update the thread.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. John, we don't hear you.
Oh, okay. I was talking to myself. I was just going to say that I wasn't quite sure about the link that Cesar posted, but we do have a spreadsheet that has a list of the conferences that we're, submitting talks to, which ones were accepted, and so on and so forth, right? So, we could provide a link to that as well, right? So there are, even beyond EclipseCon and JavaOne, right? We've done multiple DevOxes and so on as well.
Mm-hmm.
There were at least 20 different talks on MicroProfile in the last year. Easily.
Yep. I didn't hear that, David. How many?
There were at least 20 different talks on MicroProfile in the last year. Easily.
Yeah.
I mean, Ivar Grimstad did like at least 12 himself.
Yes, he did.
Also, I think it's the September Eclipse newsletter is going to be featuring MicroProfile. At least that's the goal that we have. So we're actually looking for writers, guys. I'm putting out a call for writers right now, request to be featured in the September Eclipse newsletter. Thank you.
What's that? I can't hear you. What was that? I'm just kidding. I'll submit something.
I have one feedback for the presentation, John. You know what, in the section that says organizations, individuals, I already wrote the feedback, but I would like to explicitly state in this video call that gets recorded, we need to add a slide that actually name the active individuals currently from the start to now MicroProfile. It is not fair that we only have vendors and organizations like JOGS We need to add a slide that is focused. Take the individuals from that thing, the first slide, and the second slide say individuals. It's like microprofilers, and just add the names. We need there John, Amen. We need Mark Esther. We need all these amazing people. I cannot stress enough that we have the issue of being seen as only vendors, which is not the case. We need to do better at paying to these individuals. You don't have to be an organization to rock it with us. We will listen. You can be one person and make enormous contribution to us. We have Mark. I don't want to put you in the spot, but do you believe that is a good recognition to say you freaking rock?
Thanks a lot, but yeah, that's too much of an honor.
So we're going to dedicate a slide to Mark, and then we'll have a slide for everybody else.
Everyone.
I want 3 slides dedicated to Mark.
Well,
so I can watch him squirm back there because he's too humble.
You freaking rock.
Like seriously, you guys freaking rock. Really.
Okay, so I mean that's a point taken, right? And maybe what we maybe from a marketing perspective we could even have committee. I'm going to say committer, but community member of the recognize of the month for the following things, right? I mean these are things that we could talk about within the community. So let's I don't want to go too far down this. We're at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hour's up. Yeah, we're at the top of the hour. I'd like to thank everybody for joining. Scott, sorry we didn't get to the backlog with your topic, but let's discuss it in the community, and we could have it in the agenda if it still needs to be for the next meeting. I'd like to remind everybody that we do this on a bi-weekly basis, right? So feel free to join in.
Same time, same bet channel.
Okay, guys. Bye.
Seeing everyone. Thank you for the great presentation. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, John. Great job.
Oh, yep. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.